In the packet from 8.3, did we do 21 and 22? This is about special right triangles. Did we do them? No. Okay, so we kind of left off here, I think. All right, so I'm gonna pick up there. Then I'm gonna go when I get to the problems that I handed you today. It'll be up here in just a moment. Okay, so the pattern that you have got to get memorized or know how to use in your ISN for a 30, 60, 90 triangle. The short leg we called n. That was your short leg. The long leg was n times the square root of 3. So whatever the short leg was, you multiplied it by the square root of 3. This is on the 8.3 packet, number 21 and 22. You don't? Oh, well, well, well. So you have this now that I gave you today. So we had done everything up to that practice though, right? Okay, so what you have, what page is in your packet, that's why the faces were looking, was this, right? Okay, so I'm going to come to this later. Right now, I want you to go to the worksheet, single worksheet that I gave you today. And that was this one. This is your 21 and 22, which is what I was just looking at a minute ago. All right. This is from the worksheet that you got today. Again, there was a special, right, two special right triangle patterns that we worked on Friday. The 30, 60, 90 said the short leg was n. That was, I called that SL, short leg. The long leg was n times the square root of 3. That's your long leg across from the 60. And of course, this one's the hypotenuse, and it was 2 times the short leg, 2n. And that's your hypotenuse. You need to be able to look at the problem, identify what you're given, and go from there to follow this pattern. So on this one, number 21, you are given the hypotenuse. If the hypotenuse is given in the rules, it says the following. If you're given the hypotenuse, the short leg is the hypotenuse divided by 2. Then you take that short leg, and to get the long leg, you take the short leg times the square root of 3. So, yeah, that's how you can use the ISN. It says the hypotenuse is a 6. That means we divide that by 2, and we get the short leg, which would be where y is. So that would be 3. That's your short leg. Then your long leg would be the short leg, 3 times the square root of 3. This one is your long leg. Now, you don't have to do these labels on here. I'm just trying to help get straight what part's what. The second one is a 45, 45, 90, which has its own pattern. The pattern on the 45, 45, 90. Notice, guys, here's another way to remember which one's got the radical 2 and the radical 3. The 45, 45, 90 has 2 equal angles and 2 equal sides. Both of these are n and n. And the hypotenuse in relationship to the legs is n times the square root of 2. So notice there's a 2, root 2 in this one. It's got 2 equal angles, 2 equal sides. This one has a root 3 in it. It has 3 different angles that are all multiples of 3, 30, 60, and 90. Okay, and there's 3 different legs. So that's the one with the square root of 3 in it, if you're trying to memorize it. On this picture, there is a hypotenuse given, and it has a with a square root of 2 on it. The rule in our list that we looked at was if you have the hypotenuse, and it has no square root of 2, well, ours does. So if you have the hypotenuse, it's the leg times the square root of 2, which would be then for this problem, these legs would be 8 because this is in the n root 2 position. So that would be 8 and this would be 8. Now these are supposed to be some of the easy problems. Okay. 23 has a short leg of 1. So the hypotenuse is twice the size of the short leg, so it would be 2. How do I know where that is? That's the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90. The long leg is this side. It's longer than the side with a 1 on it. It would be 1 times the square root of 3, and you don't have to write that 1. Now, the hard kind, I'm trying to do an example of each type. The hard kind has for a 45, 45, 90 is when the hypotenuse is given and it has no square root of 2 on it. I can't tell and just look at what the side lengths would be. So it says in the rules, if you have a hypotenuse with no square root of 2, then what you do is to find a leg, you multiply by the square root of 2 and divide by 2 with the hypotenuse. You take the hypotenuse of 6. You multiply it by the square root of 2 and you divide by 2. And then you see if you can simplify that. Since 6 is divisible by 2, that is 3 square roots of 2. That gives you both of these sides. So you cut the hypotenuse in half and put a square root of 2 on it. That would be your legs. Now those of you who are here on Friday, this might be a lot easier. Number 25, you've got 2 root 2 on the hypotenuse. It has a square root of 2, so the number in front of it is the length of the sides. They're just 2 apiece. Okay, so for the next one, you got your 30, 60, 90. And I'm going to stop doing them very soon and have you guys do them and see what I can help with. This one's got a hypotenuse of 16, so the short leg is half that. And where is it? Well, the short leg is always across from the 30, or you can tell by looking that it's shorter. This would be 8, half of that, and then multiply 8 times the square root of 3 for the long leg. I would like you to try 27 through 30 now. Okay, these are the answers for 23 through 26 if I didn't already show them. And this was just the pattern that we were using. And I didn't write down the 45, 45, 90, but we got to get these memorized or at least know how to use our ISN. Okay, so then I went on to this page and went over these answers. So for number 27, again, y was 6, x was 12. You guys need to try the next problems, please, after number 30. Okay, so A was 6 root 2 and B was 6. And this one, x is 2 root 3 and y was 2. And then those are the answers for 30. You can leave them as a fraction. If you're on a quiz, which we will be having our first quiz in 2 days that will involve this stuff, you can have a decimal, but I prefer you left it as a fraction. All right, guys, let's see how you guys are doing with 31 and 32. 31 is a 45-45 triangle. This is meant to be one of your easiest types of problems in the patterns, in that it has n times the square root of 2 for your, if it's already got a root 2 on the hypotenuse. So A and B are the same answer, and they are both what? 5. Okay, n is a 5. It is the number in front of the square root of 2. Now, 32, if you like to label the rest of the angles, you know, if it's missing, you can tell what that other angle would be. It's got to be a 30, 60, 90. This is the long leg that you're given. Now, if I were to write the pattern down in the direction that this is sitting, then it would be across from the 30 is n, across from the 60 is n root 3, and the hypotenuse is 2n. So maybe that'll help you see what I'm looking at, because it's sitting a different direction than your ISN. That one is the 4 root 3. This is 4 root 3 on that picture. So what's the n? The 4. That goes where the b is, right? So b is 4, and you double it and get a is 8. 2 times the n value, or the short leg, is the hypotenuse. Okay, on the back, please, I want you to get working on it, and then I'm going to come around and check with you. So I know that we go at different paces. If you have finished and I haven't checked you yet, please go to your packet from Friday, or from the last time we met, which is your 8.3, and work in there, and then I'm going to answer questions on that after we get some checking done around here. I'm going to pause. Okay, I've been around checking to see how people are doing, and now it's time for us to make sure we all have the answers because I can't actually sit with everybody. This was the hypotenuse on a 30, 60, 90, so the short leg's half the size. This should be a 7, and this should be the square root of 3. Okay, what's the problem I've been noticing is jumping back and forth from the pattern, which one you're working on. So this is 30, 60, 90. I'll just remind you, this is your short leg. Your long hypotenuse is twice as big, and your long leg should be the short leg times the square root of 3. So when I look over here, I see the short leg. So I double it, 3/2 times 2. And then I saw the issue that some people weren't sure how you multiply 3/2 times 2. That would be 6/2, which is 3. Okay, so it should be 3 for you. All right, then V would be 3/2 times the square root of 3. That's your long leg. You can just write it like that. Don't worry about messing with your calculator or dividing the number. You can just write a fraction. All right, this one, 7/2. Now we got to switch gears, guys. This is 45, 45, 90 now. So it's not the same as the ones we just did. It's a totally different pattern. The legs are your ends, and your hypotenuse is n times the square root of 2. Now, I showed everybody last time we were together how we came up with these patterns, and I demonstrated where it came from. So if you happen to miss that, you can go watch the video. The 7/2, though, should be also on this leg because the legs are the same size. And then all you got to do is do 7/2 times the square root of 2 for your hypotenuse. Okay. 36 is following this pattern as well. You will probably have noticed that this side right here is the hypotenuse, which matches that, which tells me the n value is a 7. So that means U and V are both 7. Okay. So when you get to the next problems, you have to know which one you're doing. So these two are the 30, 60, 90. And if you want me to, I'll jot down the pattern again. This would be 2n, this would be n times the square root of 3. Okay, so I'll do those two now. So this is 60, this is 30 then. That means the side across from 30. Oh, that's always across from the 30. That's your n. So this is like your n in the problem. So this is 7. Therefore, to get the hypotenuse, I'll do 2 times 7. So A should be 14. And then B, you take the short leg, which is 7, and you multiply it times the square root of 3. So B would have been 7 root 3. Okay. Then coming back over here, this is a 30, 60, 90 also. The short leg is given to you. It's 5. So you go and say, wait, the hypotenuse is always across from that 90, and it's the longest side. So I'm going to do 2 times 5 and get U is 10. The long leg compared to the short leg, you take the short leg times the square root of 3. So this would be 5 times the square root of 3. So V is 5 times the square root of 3, and U is 10. These problems are doing the 45, 45, 90 pattern. Now I'm drawing it like it's on your paper. And the legs are equal. I called them n and n, and I called the hypotenuse n times the square root of 2. And the reason I changed them to n's from x's was because all the problems seemed to have x in them, and that didn't want you to be confused by that. So if this is 9, that's like a side that's an n. See where the right angle is? These are made, and these are equal. So this would be 9 where the y is. And x will be the leg times the square root of 2. So 9 root 2. Oh, I don't know why I did that one before I did this one, but I did. All right, this is the hard kind, number 38. The hypotenuse is given. In the pattern, that's the side, and I'll show you, is that says n root 2 on it. And in this case, it equals 4. So on Friday, or last time we were together, I showed people how we got what we got, why the legs are 2 root 2. I showed them by showing them that we would divide both sides by the square root of 2. You do not have to write this, but I'm going to show you how you could get it on your own. you might not know about something called rationalizing the denominator. You probably talked about it briefly in Algebra 1. And if you're in Algebra 2 concurrently right now, you have talked about it, probably rationalizing the denominator. We multiplied top and bottom by the square root of 2. We got 4 square roots of 2 over the square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. And then we reduced it, and that gave us 2 square roots of 2. All right, what we did is made up a rule for it, and we wrote it in our have it in our ISN. It says, if you have the hypotenuse given and it has no square root of 2, what you're supposed to do is multiply by the square root of 2 and divide by 2. So first divide by 2, then multiply by the square root of 2. So these, I think we have a few more coming up that are like this. And there they are. Okay, see, let's just go right to 42 because it's just like the one I talked about. So you divide 3 by 2, and then you stick a square root of 2 on it. That's both of the legs. That's all there is to it. They're 3 halves times the square root of 2. And number 44 is the same thing. You take half of the hypotenuse, 9 halves, and put a square root of 2 on it. 9 halves times the square root of 2. And if you divided it out, some of you wrote 4.5 root 2, and up here some of you wrote 1.5 root 2. Okay, this one's back to the 30, 60, 90. I'll even draw it the direction it's laying. So if that's your 30, that's your 60, then your short leg would be here, across from the 30s, and 2n would be your hypotenuse, and n times the square root of 3 is across from the long leg. Now the long leg has 5 times the square root of 3. So you're given the long leg, okay, and it with the square root of 3 on it. So take off the square root of 3 is what it says in your ISN, and that would give you b is 5. And then you multiply b by 2 to get a, so a would be 10. Now, some of you had all of these right. Okay, 43, you've got another 30, 60, 90. It's laying like this. And there's your n, your 60s here. This is 2n, and this would be n times the square root of 3. So what have you been given? You've been given the hypotenuse. So to go backwards, if it's 2n, then if 10 equals 2 times n, then you divide by 2, and n would be 5. So that would be where the y is. 5 is your y is your 5, y equals 5. And then the long leg would be the short leg, which is what I just wrote on. Short leg is 5. The long leg would be 5 times the square root of 3. So x is 5 times the square root of 3. Think that we've just got 2 more, right? Okay. By the way, I am not going to be collecting this sheet because I went through everything on it. It's a good study sheet for studying for the patterns. All right, so 45. This is another 30, 60, 90. And this is how it's sitting. The short leg is across from the 30, the long leg is n root 3, and the hypotenuse is 2n. In this diagram, I have been given this. So 7 halves is the n value. Whatever's in front of that square root of 3, 7 over 2. That would be your short leg. I hope you're seeing it a little better. Now, you got to double that to get the hypotenuse. So 7 over 2 times 2, what's that going to be? Just 14 over 2, which is 7. Okay, and this one is a 45, 45, 90. The legs are n and n. The hypotenuse is n times the square root of 2 in the pattern. I turned it the way it goes. It's got a hypotenuse that's this. That's your n root 2 side. So you would have to multiply by the square root of 2 and divide by 2. So these are going to be 5 root 2 apiece. So divide by 2, multiply by the square root of 2. All right, we are going to tomorrow do the tangent ratio, and we'll be doing some review of this stuff, maybe ask some questions from your 8 3 packet. So please practice the rest of the problems that we did not go over in your packet so that you can start getting more confident with this, I hope. So I can fix anything that's going wrong tomorrow. There will be a quiz on in 2 days.